Manager, that's CISM. So about Christine's experience, she has over 6 years in information security, risk management, and IT auditing. She has performed information security assessment for various sectors, including the banking, insurance, telecoms, government institutions, and medical institutions, while with Ernst & Young. And while at MTN Uganda, she's responsible for information security risk, information technology risk, and network management risk. She's interested in athletics, especially tracks and jumping, with a recent interest in artistic gymnastics. I think that's a very a thorough information regarding Christine. Yeah, artistic gymnastics. I will definitely Google that. Yeah, and then for the next speaker or the next panelist that we do have for the day is Moses Maundu, who is a seasoned cybersecurity enthusiast with over 12 years of experience in cybersecurity advisory, sales, distribution, pre-sales, product management, and channel development. Currently, he's a major accounts manager with Fortinet, a cybersecurity company that secures the largest enterprise, service provider, and government organizations around the world. Well, before joining Fortinet, he has spent 2 years with ForcePoint as a territory account manager, looking after East Africa region. He comes with a technical background, having worked as pre-sales lead and a technical consultant with different companies in helping customers within the East Africa solve challenges around IT infrastructure and IT security. So Moses holds a bachelor's degree in business information technology, industry certifications at CISSP, CEH, ITIL. He enjoys advising CXOs on where to spend their next dollar on cyber security investments. And then last but not least, we do have Evans, who Mr. Evans Kang'ethe is a product manager for cybersecurity and dimension data in the region and supports global product strategy. He is required to drive the product management strategy depending on the needs of the business, ensuring cybersecurity products remain relevant, sustainable, compelling, and competitive within the markets they're designed to serve. He's currently finishing his MSc in Information Systems at Strathmore University. Apart from this, he's a Certified Information Systems Auditor, CISA, and Certified Information Security Manager, CISM, by ISACA. He is also a certified lead implementer or lead auditor and trainer for the ISO 27001 Information Security Standard by PECB. So that being said, that was not the least of the profiles, but I will allow our co-host, which is Joshua Jr., to introduce himself and tell us who he is to us as smart and what are his interests as a person out there. So I'd like to welcome all the speakers for the day, and as I welcome Joshua to continue with this session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Daisy, for that handful of an introduction. Thank you, our co-hosts or co-panelists, for accepting the invite. And thank you for all the attendees. I see we are now around 72, which is quite a number. And I'm hoping that the information that we gather from this session or what we discuss can be actually also spread to other people. My name is Joshua Juna, and I'm in charge of information security at Smart Applications. I look after information security for all the countries Smart Applications is in. And a brief about Smart Applications: we are an ICT company, and our main goal is provide technological solutions that actually do matter in the current space we are in and in the modern day. And our niche product is largely around biometrically controlled smart card technology. That is our cash car, but we have also other products. I won't go too much into the marketing. We have a marketing director for that. And allow me to dive deep into the gist of the day. That is managing cybersecurity risks that are associated with a remote workforce. And I'll just give just a small introduction so that then I can hand over to the panelists to guide us and give us more information on how then we can handle cybersecurity risks. So let's begin with the definition of a remote workforce. What is a remote workforce? Because this is something that has been in place over the years, but because of the COVID situation, all of a sudden it has actually become top of mind. So there is a reason we did not say work from home, because that is just a segment of it. A remote workforce, in its own definition, is people who are not in the same space or traditionally centralized workplaces. So someone who's not in the office. So we did not want to concentrate on work from home because the person will be working from a cafe. That means we would have left out that person. A person will be working as in jam, heading home. That's still a remote workforce. So anyone who does not conform to traditional norms of being in the office, that is a remote worker. Think of your salesperson who's out selling. Think of that field person or the technician who is out making sure that the brand of the organization is kept. Any person who's not in the office is a remote worker. And these pictures actually depict what the scenario is like for remote workers. I'm very sure what you're seeing right now is something common to most of us, especially in this COVID time. And this is typically work from home. You can see that there are a lot of variables when it comes to people working remotely, and to be specific, working from home. So you can imagine a situation where you have a call center agent at home and there are children playing around and they need their attention. So today we are going to discuss what are some of these issues that have come up with this sort of situation, and how then do we make sure that we mitigate those risks. And that's why we have the panelists that have just been introduced to you. They have a wealth of information and they're going to help us and assist us address that. Let's look at what does a remote worker need, the essentials for any remote worker, okay? First and foremost, you need to have electricity. That is a given, yeah? You need to have connectivity. So definitely remote working is not as rosy as it sounds. It has its own challenges. I'm very sure most of you during this period have seen men climbing up on poles to fix your electricity, have gone actually for more than 3 hours without electricity. Then how do you get work done? And how do you do it in a secure manner? Connectivity. I'm very sure most of us, the lockdowns that we experienced at the beginning of this period found us in areas that did not have good connectivity, or even had never tested the connectivity at home, because when you come from the office, you switch off and you want peace of mind. But then this time around, you've been forced to stay at home and you aren't sure the connectivity could provide for you and meet your needs. Yeah. So these two, you can agree with me, those who have worked from home or have worked remotely are quite essentials. And we shall see how do they play into the cybersecurity space as we move on. Some of the tools that remote workers are using, definitely remote working is supported by technology. It can be a bit hard to have remote working without technology, because it rides on technology and that's what gets things done. So some of the tools, of course, I'm very sure we are all aware of Zoom, which is what we're using right now. It has all of a sudden become more popular than most of the collaboration tools that have been existing. Some are using Skype, some are using Cisco WebEx, people are using G Suite. All these are things that traditionally were not so popular, but all of a sudden they are now popular. So we are going to look at how then do we make sure these tools are used in a secure manner, and we make sure that we keep the security that we had when we were in the office to the same standard as when we are working remotely. And as you can see, I'm trying to avoid the word work from home, because now the new normal will be not work from home, but remote working. So there will be no restrictions that I have to work from home. Today you will wake up and you want to work from a cafe. The next day you wake up and you want to work from maybe as they are servicing your car at the garage. Yeah. So definitely we need to make sure that we cover even the people who are working remotely, not just the ones working from home. Of course, the biggest percentage is that the people who will be working from home, and whatever we are going to discuss today will also cover those people. The other tool that is very common these days is VPN, because definitely we need to have information for the organization secured. And of course, for you to work from a remote site, you need to have a workspace. So we are going to look at how then do all these come into play and affect our work life. Okay, so I will begin by posing this question to my panelists, and I think I will do ladies first. Yeah, what are the security risks associated with remote working? So Christine, from your experience and from what you've seen over the years, what are some of these risks that are associated with remote working, with of course the biggest being working from home?
Okay, thank you, Joshua. And thank you very much for the introduction. When in most cases before, we can just take a leap back, maybe 5 months back before the COVID breakdown or the COVID associated activities and more of the organization around there, still most of the companies, we had staff who work remotely. It can be a remote in such a way that they need to fix something and in the middle of the night, or they need to access the data center and they don't need to be at the data center. So they remotely access the server nodes at the data center. Or it may be just as simple as filling a leave form, or as simple as trying to log an incident when from home. So you'll find that it was available, people were working remotely, though it was not to the extent that we are seeing it right now. So when we ask ourselves, what are the security risks associated? Some of them we knew, and as security or IT personnel, we were dealing with them. And in there, as I will try to take the course of lumping them up, saying when we look at the staff themselves or the staff ourselves, what are the risks involved with our staff working from home? When we go to the technology bit, what are the risks associated with the technologies we are using? And then when we go to the process bit, because now the process bit is going to address more of how the staff or how we are giving staff access to the organizational systems. So for me, let me first deliberate on the technologies, and especially right now, which is more of, if an organization had 100 staff, right now 80 of the staff are working from home. And what they're using is what we call endpoints. It's a computer, it's a phone. In my organization where I work, we shifted even desktops to people's homes. It's more of a full load workstation. So when we look at these risks, security risks associated with currently the endpoints, they do really won't differ from the normal, but they have now heightened. Heightened is meaning like they have gone to a step further. For example, the unsecure network they are going to use to connect these laptops and then VPN through those networks to our corporate network. The unsecure networks we are using are MiFi's. Some of us are using Cafe. Some of us are using public networks. Some of us are even borrowing from the neighbor. And for the security experts here, I'm sure some of you are hacking the neighbor or the other person who doesn't know what's going on. So when you look at that secure link we have connected to the endpoints, which are currently also storing company information, there is a big exposure of the company data. There is a bigger exposure to the phishing attacks. There is a bigger exposure to sharing information which we are not supposed to share. But anyway, I have it on my computer and the network I'm connected to will not restrict me from sharing this information. And then the other bit is the bring your own device. Joshua had hinted on it. Before it was more of bring your own device within the corporate. Right now it is bring your own device within my home. So basically, you find that currently what is happening is the staff may even be using their own devices with or without authorization to hold company data, or even to transfer company data from the phone to their own devices, or from the company device to their phones. So we have the bring your own devices policy may not work right now, where we are now using the insecure mobile devices for our work and also to access company information. The other thing which we have to look at is the staff themselves. Right now, the staff is fishing information left, center. Before, I didn't even know about TikTok that much. Even I didn't know that Africans are very active on TikTok. But when you look at how social media is hiking and how we are using it, how actually right now, people who had less YouTube views, they are getting more than ever before. And you find that our staff right now, they have been exposed to more than what they thought was available in the internet space. And they are using the corporate devices to access this. So you find that where I am working, I'm getting a notification of a TikTok. Where I'm working and I'm getting a notification of a YouTube video load. And in such notification, we are getting also our smart people who are now trying to trick our staff, the phishing like notifications. And the scam notifications coming on. Actually, right now, according to that, our staff without us knowing, because right now we know what they access. The neighbor who hacked their network knows what they access, knows how they access. So you find that when we start looking at the current potential risks, it's no longer a potential risks, there are risks there. It is just because now the exposure has expanded and it is real. Before when we used to go for security discussions, it was, and somebody would jokingly say, actually for security attacks, it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when, but right now it's reality. It is when is it going to blow up for my organization? When is it going to blow up? Which staff is going to be the first culprit? So that's first of all, my first deliberation around the potential risks. I don't know if Joshua should first go ahead with the mitigations, or other panelists can help me build up on this.
I think let's exploit it further so that we have it exhausted. I would like to go to Moses. I think one of the things that Daisy did not mention is that Moses has forever in history has it that he has been in the vendor space for long. And definitely what the vendor does sees from their eye, they see what the market demands for, because they are the ones we run to for solutions. So when our staff gets hacked, we run to Moses and the teams. Yeah. So I would like to find out from you, Moses, what has been the trend like? What are you seeing from this vendor space? And what is it that has this remote workforce that has blown out of proportion by COVID? What has it brought in terms of risks when it comes to working remotely? You might need to unmute your mic. Still, we can't hear you clearly. We can't hear you. Okay. So in the meantime, as Moses, like you remember, we might have, these are some of the challenges of remote working. So I'm very sure Moses is at home, and I think we can see in real time what happens when people are working remotely. but let's give him some time to fix it. I can go to Evans. Evans also comes from a point of view where it is middle between the vendors and also the customer. So he advises, so he's not vendor specific, but brings a bit of consultancy on the ground for the customer to make informed decisions. So from your end, Evans, what are some of the challenges and risks, especially in terms of security, have you seen when it comes to the consulting space?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me before I say so much?
Well. I think it's a common statement with all Zoom meetings. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So just diving right into it, and I'd love to contextualize the conversation. We talk about security, and I'll be quick to say that security does not exist as an abstract concept. It helps to achieve an objective, and the objective underlies in the principles of information security and cyber security, which are CIA. CIA means confidentiality, integrity, and availability. There is a reason an organization is worried about security of their staff when they are working. And if you look at the root of this is that their business processes being protected, there are financial transactions being protected. Basically, there is intellectual property that's being protected. There are services, and organizations can have internal services within for staff, and also a case like Smart Application, who has third parties a lot interacting with their system. So when all these services and information that flows within this infrastructure is affected, therein lies the risk. Yeah, so what is the motivation of security in this context? You need to ask yourself and think like you need to think there's a mic that's disturbing. Maybe we can mute our microphone. It's a bit distracting. Yeah, why would you be concerned? Anyone you are protecting it from a threat. So what's the motivation of this threat? Then when you start thinking like that, then you can have the answers. You need to think like a thief to catch a thief. All right. So the motivations that have been motivating people around exploiting threats within a remote workforce haven't changed. Yeah, we are the ones who moved from the offices into homes, but the nature of our jobs, what we deliver in our job descriptions, hasn't changed. So the motivation is as good as the same. However, the point of which these issues can be exploited, these threats and vulnerabilities can be exploited, has changed from the organization context into a home context. So it's easier now to be exploited from home because one, we share our computers, we share our passwords. We are not, as a family, assuming you're a family of 5 sharing a computer, we all have different capacities of understanding of this threat. Yeah, we don't have groups doing using one account at the same time. So when your wife or husband or your kid in senior school or lower school is accessing the computer, whatever motivation and whatever information they are trying to interact with, yeah, is varied. So you find that if they are accessing sites for entertainment, you could be very ethical and only using that browser for work, yeah. But because of the nature of that sharing, okay, we expose our networks to several issues, including phishing attacks, including malware that can be downloaded, yeah. And once your computers are compromised, then one can use those computers, a hacker can use those computers as botnets. Okay, botnet meaning that they will be used to connect to the resources in the headquarters, and that can be exploited. So those are the challenges that we are facing right now in terms of capacity. The more aware users remotely are aware of how and the nature of these threats, the easier it is to mitigate them. But that's the starting point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evans. Welcome back, Moses.
Can you hear me guys now?
Yes, clearly, yes.
Good, sorry, I had to change my device, not a problem.
It's okay. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Thanks again for the opportunity. So I think from a vendor perspective, I'll tell you what I saw 3 months just after joining Fortinet is, as a company, we had a huge request of customers wanting to move to VPN. So meaning they already had the boxes and the firewalls protecting the infrastructures, and quickly we had people who wanted fast to move very fast into VPN just to enable them connect remotely, because some did not know how to do it. Others needed help to actually connect and also procure licenses. So there's a huge risk, not risk, but opportunity that we saw as a vendor, just to help our customers move to remote working. And I think the other thing that also I've just been thinking about is, I think the people who have got quite pants down was the HR practitioners. I know this is a cybersecurity discussion, but I think the biggest problem what they're facing is they didn't have KPIs for people working for remotely. They don't know KPIs, so that's why people will be in bars at 10 a.m. in the 10 a.m. in the office, because people think it's holiday, and it's not holiday, it's working. You get. So for some of us who have worked probably half a career time in working at remotely, we understand this is what you're measured on. But I think from an aspect of HR, this is quite a challenge. I think probably we need to look at new ways of measuring people. But over and above that, I think from a cyber risk perspective, I think two panelists addressed it pretty much. So you have the people connecting from unsecure devices. What are some of the solutions can help them, protect them, from malware and the rest of stuff. You have people who we have a lot of phishing attacks now coming to our infrastructures. I know companies are doing things like phishing awareness. I mean, not phishing awareness, but user awareness. But again, how effective is that particular program? Because I'm just discussing with the customer, and you're like, Moses, you keep on telling people not to click on links, and it seems like it's not really working out. But again, from experience, it's probably not the right way. It's probably you need to enable people and tell them, as much as you click, this is what you need to do after you click. So how much are you reporting to IT to say this that actually happened? Then the issue around BYOD, as Christine mentioned it, people are connecting towards, with company devices. Now I'm using now my personal device, no longer the corporate which I was connecting on. But again, I still have access to my corporate emails. For example, today I want to join Cisco, I probably have most of probably company data that I can use to do something again which is not good. So I think those things are some of the things that are really pushing the risk quite high to organizations, and we really need to help organizations to know how to address these challenges. But I think from a vendor perspective, all we see is dollars.
Of course, definitely. I'm very sure you're smiling to the bank. And I think that's why then we need your perspective also, not just to smile to the bank, but also help out the organizations. And as we go into the part of mitigation measures, I would like us to break it down. We have the corporate, that's the organization, but also have the individuals, because cybersecurity does not know the difference, and the two are intertwined. I mean, like Christine had mentioned, you cannot stop me using my phone right now to access company data. Most companies, most organizations were not ready for people to work from home. They didn't even have the KPIs like Moses has said. So as we break down the mitigation measures, I would like us to see how does the individual as a person mitigate against these risks, and then how also does the organization, because we also need to help out the individuals themselves, because once you secure the human endpoint, that means you have covered at least a bigger portion, because as the human beings are the biggest risk there is to the organization. So back to you, Christine. What are some of the mitigation measures that people can use as well as organizations to mitigate against some of these risks that we have seen?
Okay, for the people, let me talk about the people who are staff to organizations. Usually, to ask the people, we have had series of security awareness. Most of it became boring. Every month you do a webinar for 5 minutes, or you do a course for 10 minutes. And it kind of became boring. It became the things we know. And some of it was by organizations by restricting the number of, the length of the password, enforcing you to change it. And if you have not got that punch, you will not connect to the network, you get. So most of it was being done by our organizations. Now to us, the individuals, let us try to remember. Let us try to say, hey, why were they telling us that the password should be changed every 60 days, every 120 days? Why were they telling us not to share our password? And now I'm sharing it with my husband. Now I'm sharing it with my elders church so that they can come and log on and do their coursework. Yeah, it's up to us to come and say, okay, I remember there was something about a scam and I shouldn't just click on any link and let me try to exercise it. Yeah, so to the staff, it is more of trying to open up your mind to that security conscious bit. But security to its growth is more of a culture. And we have reached in this unwanted period without developing that culture amongst individuals. Because you may find that it's a culture for an organization, but not yet a culture for 90% of the individuals in that organization. So that's true. Now even the organization now has to come in and help this stuff. Now, if before we were giving them those boring videos for awareness, let's try to make it more competitive. Let's try to make it more exciting. Let us give those rewards and let it, if it was a quarter, let's make it a monthly. If it was a monthly, let's make it like every 2 weeks. Let's give some rewards. Let's try to make it a little bit enjoyable. Actually, most senior management or people in security management think staff grow. Staff are like children. Yeah. The more you excite them, the more they get involved. So if these mandatory trainings turn into challenges, these people will, if you carry out even a simulation without knowing, because like if the other time you had 70% participation as your KPI, this time around you will exceed it by having 80% participation, and that's a good win. Then the other thing on this stuff again, currently it is really hard to stop a staff using a device. But if an organization can teach or try to prompt a staff to download these patches, even on their phones, even on their like personal devices, patch management is crucial. I was actively in penetration testing, and there is actually maybe 1 or 2, but all the times I was successful into a network was through a device which was missing a certain patch. And let it be Android, let it be Windows, because usually they say Windows are the quick ones. But when we miss that patch, it is really critical. Yeah, so if we can get a way of trying to sensitize them and our staff get used and learn how to update their own devices, install, because I'm sure staff have good phones and they are missing number of security patches. Yeah, so if they can get that understanding that this security patch can help me, it will be an addition to us teaching them about the scams and the phishing attacks and the not sharing the password. That's my submission on this stuff bit.
Thank you very much, Christine. And I think the powerful points. What I've picked out that really needs to work on the individual level. Now that we are using our devices to access corporate data and personal data, it's high time. I'm very sure most of the people who have Android usually get that prompt to update your device. Usually, I think, and I'm not sure how the iPhone usually does it, but the Android phones do get a notification. I know it takes up MBs for most of the people, so they're always looking at the MBs it's eating up. but it could help you and save you. It could save the day, and not only save you as an individual, but also save your organization. I see there is a question, a hand up from Gilbert. Let me give Gilbert the opportunity to talk. Gilbert? Okay, I'm not sure why we can't hear him. In the meantime, those who have questions, kindly type them so that then we are able to answer them as we go on, and in the event that we are not able to hear you. I see a question from Ian Givingi. Will face recognition technology render passwords relevant into the future? I think we can park that for now, but I will give that to Moses, because given that he's from the vendor space, and talk about it a little. Over to you, Moses. What are some of the mitigation solutions you, the vendors, have for us in this remote working? What are some of the solutions that we as organizations and individuals can use?
So I think there are a couple of things that actually people can look at and use. So one of the things I'll start with what Christine mentioned. So let's start from the endpoint, because that's where everything starts. So the endpoint, what is it that you have in your PC to protect you? We have seen most guys are still, using your antiviruses, but now what we are also seeing enterprise customers are moving to is what we call endpoint detection and response. So meaning I'm not only detecting and telling you there's a virus, I'm able to actually do a post and pre analysis of your environment. So looking at, this is how your PC was, and this is how it's been affected. So we're able even to disinfect automatically, because I think one thing that we can't run away from cybersecurity is we need to automate functions as much as we can, because we agree we have a skill shortage big time. So for us to continue doing the manual processes, and even Christian, as you're saying, patching, I'm not sure how many people will actually know even what a patch is. Let's start from there. How many people know that actually what that is? So we want to, as vendors now, most vendors actually going to the direction whereby you want to automate as many functions as you can. So endpoint protection is one thing. So not only looking at the antivirus, looking at a solution that can be able to detect and respond to cybersecurity threats. I think the other thing is around authentication. So if people are connecting to your infrastructure, how are you able to validate that this is actually Joshua or this is Evans? Are you able to validate? So things like soft tokens that live in your phone. So you same way you get with Yahoo or Gmail. So you log in and tell you are logging from an area we've never seen you. Please put in this code to actually validate that this is actually Moses connecting to Yahoo or Gmail. So the same thing you have for enterprises, which we call it two-factor authentication. I think the other thing is also the issue around access control. So people are connecting to infrastructure. Do you know what device they are connecting to? From where are they connecting from? Is that device clean? Meaning, is it to the right posture? Because sometimes I can connect, yes, to my infrastructure, but probably my machine is infected. Then what happens to the rest of the corporate infrastructure? And now that we're also working from home, what does that mean to, I'm using a PC which is not a company PC, and I'm connecting to company infrastructure. What does that mean? Can I probably bring issues to corporate data? And then the last thing is also visibility around cloud. I think one of the biggest winners around home remote working is cloud and security. So we're seeing a lot of guys consuming a lot of cloud now, but they're also the IT managers and the CLs are losing visibility on what's happening on those clouds. Because you have people, I'm connecting from my Office 365. For example, at Fortinet, probably 95 or actually 100% of all our stuff is in the cloud. So do the people at backend have the visibility to know what are first the sanctioned cloud providers I need to access as an employee? What are the unsanctioned applications? It's interesting to mention, we're actually doing some work for an organization, and we noticed that the unsanctioned cloud providers were eating much of the bandwidth and resources for the corporate as compared to the sanctioned application. So we have things like what we call as cloud access security brokers. So it's like a gateway to your cloud provider. So they give you the visibility to know what exactly is happening in the cloud, who's accessing the Office 365, what data they accessing, and making sure they don't have that data move from Office 365 to my Google Drive. So all these are technologies that actually can be used together to reduce the risk when people are working from home.
Okay, thank you very much, Moses. I'm seeing a question here. I think this is towards you, Christine. Please define patch. I think just in a layman's term, without using security terminology, define patching and use the examples that people can relate to, because this person seems to have not understood the point on patching.
Of patching. Okay. A patch can be a feature update, a security feature update to a software. Am I still so technical?
No. No. Okay, so I think I would, let me just add on to that. So imagine your doctor tells you you need to eat more fruits for you to be resistant to coronavirus. So the fruits you're eating, that's the patch, yeah? So it is just an addition to what is the current existing, but it is to make sure that you protect yourself against any other risk that may arise from you not doing it, yeah? So if you have a phone, a smartphone, more often than not, you will find a prompt from Android saying there is a new software update. So that update is actually more often than not, a security patch. It might just be maybe a feature. They are doing maybe an extra feature onto the current operating system, but it has also a patch in it to cover some areas that might have, or loopholes that might have been brought from the previous system. Yeah. So imagine a renovation you're doing to your house. That's also a patch. So it is good to make sure that those prompts that you get on your phone, and the good thing is that most of these things are not manual. More often than they're automated. So you get a prompt on your computer, you get a prompt on your phone to do that update. When you get that prompt, please click yes and update, so that then you find that most of the risks that the loopholes that had been existing have been closed. Okay. I'll go to Evans. What would you advise as mitigation measures for the risks of home? I mean, people who are working from home and those who are working remotely, because now information is spread everywhere. Information is being accessed anywhere. I'm imagining a situation where you have a spouse, two spouses, the husband and the wife, or vice versa, who are working for competing organizations. I imagine that scenario where you're trying to keep the information away, your emails away from your husband who works for a competing organization. Yeah, given a case, let's say a case like Coke and Pepsi, and you're in the same house. So it's work versus love. How do you advise people to make sure that they mitigate against these risks?
From a home perspective, I think the solution would be pretty straightforward, especially segregating accounts. Okay, a computer can handle numerous number of accounts, so you can ensure that you have several accounts and everyone has their own passwords. And the purpose of this is just to ensure privacy. Sometimes even in terms, if there is a work in progress on a document, okay, then you're sharing a computer, someone might delete or close it down and not save, yet you had spent hours and hours. So even on a personal level, it's just prudent to ensure that you're not sharing accounts, okay, nor passwords. The other thing when it comes to the softwares and the tools that we are using, especially the likes of Zoom, Jira for project management, the responsibility of a user is also very simple. It alludes to the patches that we've talked about, okay? And from an organization perspective on the same tools, yeah, you should ensure that meetings stay private. Like what we are doing now, is one best practice. Someone who didn't get a link invite to this meeting can't access it, right? So it reduces, if there's any threat, it's among the 153 participants I can see here. You see now that's a bit tameable, yeah? So also realize that since this tool is on high attention of malicious people like the hackers, just realize that when that's the context, then the owners of the tool, whether it's Microsoft Teams or Zoom, they are continuously releasing the patches that that Moses and Christine alluded to. So you should always prompt to run updates for the tools that you're using. Now, when we move to an organization perspective, I wouldn't go to the specifics because there's so much you can do. There are different EDRs you can use, there are different antiviruses you can use, but all these fall under some specific subject matters. One of the subject matters is to ensure that your staff, okay, from the board level, that's senior management, to the normal users and the technical people, you've assessed the kind of capacity, knowledge they need, and the HR should coordinate this knowledge gap to be closed. Okay, so since HRs are the ones in charge of capacity building in terms of knowledge, then they should ensure that at all those levels and the responsibilities each holds, depending on the department they are in, they should ensure that they are doing best practices around that. Okay. The other thing is policies. Policies is just communicating management intent. Okay, because we can spend millions of bucks trying to buy the best tools, trying to upgrade our servers, move our workloads to the cloud, etc. But if a user is not governed by a policy that has an intent, a directive, and also a repercussion of not abiding to it, then we are just as much as wasting time as not trying to even put a firewall on our network. So that's very important. So policies run across the board. There are user policies, there are business continuity policy and planning, there are disaster recovery, and all this goes under a framework called ISO 27001, which is an information security standard. So you can do a gap analysis for your organization with respect to that. And then we're against cloud because it's somewhat expensive, but moving your workload to the cloud takes care of like 70% of your headache. Of course, on security, of course, there's a shared responsibility. Okay, but when you have your workload on AWS or a data center locally or on Azure or on Office 365 or Azure, then you ensure that this service provider has invested heavily in terms of expertise, in continuity, in disaster recovery of this workload, such that your bare minimum is issues to deal. You're left as an organization, you're left with issues to do with identity access management, logging, checking out log and behavior of the users, etc. So it's important to consider such. Okay, then you can invest in the VPNs we are talking about for remote work users to access services. And then there's also user behavior monitoring, which is very important. Every transaction that happens on any transaction that happens on a computing system is logged somewhere. Okay, and it says something about the user of that PC. So when you analyze and learn that behavior using AI tools like security incidents and event monitoring tools, the security orchestration and automation and response tools, those help you know what behaviors to expect within your organization and build policies that control, and anything that becomes an outlier in that context, then you get alerts that flag you. Okay, so that's important. Then lastly for me is a simple policy that should be administered across all platforms and services and applications. Okay, you should always give access on need-to-know basis. Okay, if certain information is irrelevant for finance people, why are they able to see it? Okay, if certain information is irrelevant to the database administrators, why are they viewing it? Why does HR view finance information and vice versa? Okay, just come up with us, deny all and then now allow on need basis. That really helps a lot. Yeah, those are my tips. There are more, but that's my high level.
Thank you very much, Evans. If there's something I've picked out a lot is behavior analytics. And like Christine had mentioned, security is about a culture. It's a culture, and it cannot work on its own. So it's a combination of things. Allow me to have some of the questions that have been posted attended to. And the first question is coming from Ian Githingi. Will face recognition technology render passwords irrelevant in the future? I think I can hand over this to Moses, given the vendor space. What is up? Will face recognition technology, Moses, render usernames and password irrelevant, in your opinion?
I think it's a no and yes, because I think it depends how advanced you're talking about, because you're also looking at people get accidents. What happens? So it may not replace, it may be complementing. So the same way we might have face recognition and or well, let's say your password and your fingerprint. So probably in the medium term it may be complementing, but again, depending on how advanced it goes, then it can actually replace. But I think for me, my view would be probably it will be complementing for now. Until that time,
Okay.
we have advanced technologies to look at it differently.
And I think we have seen a lot of vendors, especially phone manufacturers, come up with these face recognition technologies. If you can integrate them into your daily work, if you can integrate them into your remote working, it would also complement, as Moses has said. The next question, which is from Daniel, how would an average user differentiate security download from downloading a virus or malware? I give this to Christine because I think this came up in the topic of patching. How does an average user, a novice user, differentiate a security download or a patch from someone downloading a virus or malware?
Okay, I will use a basic example of an Android phone. Usually for an Android phone, whether it is a Techno or it is a Samsung or the other flavors, you'll find that the security or that update notification, it comes from more of that vendor, and then it is tagged to Android. I don't know how best I can try to differentiate it. And usually scam updates usually come in links. It is not a button. It comes to links and then it takes you to a site. And in most cases, it may not even fully mimic because it really wants to download information from you. For you to, you have to put in something, or it is trying, you would see in a fishy manner that it is trying to tell you to download a file with an extension which is more of, I don't know, how can I say, like more of a fishy extension. But when it comes to the updates, in most cases, it is just update Windows. For Windows, you just click update on Windows. You don't need to download anything. You don't need to download a file with a format. You don't need to put in your credentials. You do not need to put in your bank account details, and you do not need to go to a site and see weird pornographic pictures. Those are most of the pointers when we come to these fishy scams. They try to take us and divert your attention to something else and ask for irrelevant information, especially for just an update. That's the least I can say right now.
Yes, so I think also to add on the telltale signs of how do you differentiate something that is genuine, an update, a patch, from a virus. One, begin with, usually the update or the patch is generated by the software itself. For example, if it's a phone, it will be Android itself or Samsung itself prompting you. For the case of a phone, you will need to download the application for you to be able to actually have this virus installed. So to avoid being scammed or phished, phishing just means someone actually takes advantage of you and gets information or control of your device. There are some telltale signs, and I would like to highlight some of these signs that are very common that you can actually watch out for. And then also trust your gut. For example, let me give you a typical example. Someone is telling you they have money for you. Yeah, they've posted money into your account, but you're not expecting it. Honestly, why would you go ahead to get to be inquisitive to find out if the money is actually real? So crooks rely on human emotion. The telltale signs will be they will try to use something that excites you, something that you like, or something. They usually use two emotions, love and fear. Okay, so in this case, someone is utilizing the love for money, and that's the most common. You find someone telling you money has been posted on your account, click this link maybe to open your account, or fear. You have tested for COVID-19. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest topics that has been used for scamming people, especially COVID-19, because people will come send you links with information about COVID-19, and then most probably you find yourself going to a place that actually doesn't have that genuine information. So trust your gut. That's number one. When something looks fishy, it is actually fishy. Yeah. If you're not expecting a message from someone in China, don't reply to it, or don't be prompted. Yeah. And they usually also they usually have broken English, not all the time, but most of the time. Yeah, the spelling and grammar errors are usually there. Yeah, and then they're usually asking for personal information. Yeah, I mean, why would someone whom you've never talked to in Thailand want to know your date of birth? Yeah? Why would they want to know your favorite pet? And then one of the other signs is there is usually a sense of urgency. Yeah, so they're telling you hurry up before maybe offer expires. Such things, I'm very sure they tend to raise red flags, but more often than not, we ignore them. And they have generic greeting because sometimes they don't have the exact information. Yeah, so try to avoid such because more often than not, you get caught up. Okay, so avoid opening attachments in emails from recipients you do not know. Okay, you've never heard of recipient called maybe Jet Li. Okay, you've watched them in a movie. But why would Jet Li be emailing you? Maybe someone found that on your Facebook post, you like Jet Li, and they've used that, okay? And if you're in doubt, do not click, do not download, yeah? Consult, it is not bad to consult and get a second opinion, yeah? And then also don't enter passwords and login details to pages or websites that show you a link, as Christine had highlighted. And I'm hoping that has addressed Daniel's question. We have another question from Samuel. Now that most ICT security audits recommend blocking access computers remotely using the available remote access tools, including commercial ones, what are the best recommended solutions to access third-party computers for remote support? I think I will give this to Evans. Because now that most people are working remotely, you will find that now support has to be done remotely. I'll give a typical example. In the healthcare industry, you can't just walk into a hospital right now. Even staff are fearing going to the hospital. So then how do you support the people there, given the fear? And of course, right now, every IT administrator is trying to block remote access and even genuine tools. So the question is, how best do we have remote access done for organizations? And I think this is particularly for organization and even for staff. I mean, the person who does help desk now can no longer walk to someone's desk. They need a remote access tool to be able to access them. So what is the best approach to this, Ivan?
Okay, thanks for that. We personally, I use a lot of Teamviewer and AnyDesk to support users. However, it's important to notice that most of the available tools are open source, which means they are free and downloadable. So they come with risk. Okay, and that means for you to accept using Teamviewer, and of course Teamviewer, you should whitelist the users that you should whitelist the people who should use it or be able to access maybe your staff remotely in terms of support. Okay, you should ensure that the underlying security of that endpoint, which is a computer, is up to date. All right, such that if there is any form of attempt to intercept the communication between the two parties, then the anti-malware or the antivirus or the endpoint running on that computer can flag it, block it, and also since maybe connections to also the HQ are through VPN, then also that can be flagged from a firewall perspective, because most VPNs are compatible with firewalls. If you look at Fortinet, who is here, yeah, and also the likes of Sophos, then if you can merge your firewall with your endpoint, then communication and integration and execution of tasks become easier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Evans. I'm hoping that Kahara have answered your question. The next question is coming in from Mary, and I'm hoping this is our Mary, yes. She says, I like the tool that monitors migration of data from one platform to the other. In this case, company to personal, okay? How would that look like in the fabric of personal data protection? I think if I've gotten your question right, Mary, is how do we protect personal data? And I would like also to add more, and I will give this to Christine. Recently, most of the governments within East Africa implemented the data protection bill. How then does this remote working make sure they're compliant with the data protection regulations that we have? Yeah. For example, how do we make sure that when HR is processing payroll from home, the husband does not get to know that so and so is paid this much, or so and so this is the date of birth? How then do we make sure that we are compliant with the data protection regulations by our governments or by our regulators while working remotely?
Actually, this is a very good one, because in most cases, when people talk about company data, they forget that most organizations are data collectors and data processors. And right now in East Africa, we are all legally bound. Actually, your customer can sue you and take your reputation down, and other customers will just fear to come in and give you data, especially if you are a health institution, insurance institution, you are a bank. There is a lot at stake. So you find we are currently we may not be collecting in a different measure, because in most cases the collection is done at certain points, especially if it's a bank. Still, people have to go to the bank or have to use our designated agents. But when it comes to processing, now this is where the disruption has caught us. We are processing this data through our endpoints, and sometimes actually our staff are collecting this data and they are storing it on endpoints and using funny tools, SCL, stuff like that to try to make meaning out of it. So when it comes to data protection, I have, okay, in my submission, I would request us to go back to the basics. Evans had talked about role-based access. If this person is not supposed to access that data, let them not access it at all. If in HR there are 5 people who usually access the payroll processing, and you feel it is so sensitive to your organization, try to limit this. It will not stop the efficiency. It's all about communication, who is doing it for a particular month. That means you lower down the risk. If it is 10 people accessing a customer database all the time, right now we can try to say, okay, our work hours are stopping at 5. So if somebody accesses beyond 5, what are they extracting right now? And where is that extract going? Now that's where our logs come in. Evans and Moses both talked about the log monitoring. That is where we have to really look into where is our data going, who is doing this to our data, especially extracting and processing that data. So the other bits where it comes in, most organizations, we have third parties and they cannot do without the data because usually that's our contract. On top of the NDAs we usually sign in our contracts, I request us to really go ahead and legally bind these third parties and vendors too. Let's have those security annexures and data privacy clauses within our contracts. So that they also have their bit of responsibility, even with their staff working from home. Because later on, the insurance bit, I don't know if we shall talk about it, but the way we are going, we may need more to ensure against such reputational damages due to data privacy breaches, because it may happen, it may be happening, but we may not know that it is happening, especially with this generation of millennials who, when they have access to the database and you just annoy them, they lose all their ethics and just fish it out and throw it on social media to blast you out. So I think we should, first of all, the security controls, yes, and secondly, the governance controls should also play a big role. Otherwise, we may find that our companies are losing reputation and we are going to be losing a lot of money through our regulators for these privacy policies. Then where we can anonymize this data, let us anonymize it. Sometimes it comes with a price, and especially with the cost of anonymizing this data we are processing, because somebody really doesn't see that data but works with data sets, which again he has to do a reverse to make sense out of it. It may take time at the beginning, it may cost us some more, but if we can anonymize this data, let's anonymize it. If our staff can work with aggregated data and not personal data, let us do it, because I'm sure people in business intelligence, they can do with aggregated data. They don't need to know our customer names and our customer transaction stuff. They just need to come up with reporting. So if they can work with aggregated data, let us work with this aggregated data. And before, our minimal protocols for encryption were the basics. I request us if you can go back and revise our encryption, especially the transmission and the storage bit. For end devices, if please you can do hard disk encryption, please do it. It will save us a lot. Those are some of my few things which I think we can do around there.
Thank you very much, Christine. And I would like to emphasize the point of going back to basics. Before, you had all the controls being done within the office, and even psychologically, you knew you're in the office and you were prompted to handle things with care. Right now that you're working remotely, maybe you might let your guard down because it's human nature. You're in your comfort zone. But let us go back to the basics. The same way you cannot leave the key of your door under the mat, because I don't think there's anyone who does it these days. That's the same thing we should translate into when it's security, for especially the information that we hold. I mean, before HR was processing payroll from office and it would stay there. Right now she's doing it from home. Before, the doctor was reviewing medical records from the hospital. Right now, they most probably are doing it from home. Before, if someone was in the bank, was reviewing customer records from the bank and it was left there. Right now, they're doing it from home. And you're not alone at home, or you're not alone wherever you're working from. And I'm imagining a situation where you're in a meeting at work and you're at home with your spouse who works for competition, and they're able to listen in to the meeting that you have. So if we can exercise privacy and be able to differentiate that this is work, this is personal. I know it is hard, but it's a culture we need to embrace because this is here to stay and might actually stay longer than we think. The same way we are able to move from home and go to the office so that we have that distinction, we need to also do it as we are working remotely, especially that are working from home. If you can find a way of making sure you have a space that is designated for work, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you've left your computer open and maybe your spouse or even your children can delete data by mistake. I mean, we've seen a picture in my introduction where the mother is working, but the kids are in the background, and you might end up actually posting the wrong thing. Yeah, you find someone's account, you're adding an extra 0, which can cause problems. Yeah, so we need to be aware that we are in a place of comfort, and so it is easy for us to let our guard down, and then slowly work towards having that space where we are able to separate our personal lives from work, which also helps us put our guards up the same way we'll do in the office. I'll quickly go to the next question, which is from Ian Givingi. This is his second question. Are the security softwares from hardware manufacturers better than third party? For example, Samsung Knox, Windows Defender. Is Windows Defender better than Kaspersky or Norton? And this being vendor space, Moses, I would like you to address this question. Someone is trying to compare Windows Defender and Kaspersky or your FortiGuard software. Please be objective. Do not be biased on this.
I'm not sure why Christine is laughing, but I think I'll give a very general statement from a point of looking at the operating system vendors vis-a-vis security companies. I think everybody does what they do best. So if I was making a decision, let a cybersecurity company protect my infrastructure, not the same company that designed that software to protect me. Because if there are any vulnerabilities, they'll probably not be as they'll not be as objective as they can to sort it out. And most importantly, security is not probably their core business. So somebody else who drinks, sleeps cybersecurity, then a better place to offer, for protecting your operating system, because that's what they do on a daily basis. They play around with the technology. They see these are the guys that are more into functions. They're able to show you these are operating system can do this and this and this. But the other cybersecurity guys are able to show you, listen, this is the gap we see, and this is how to address it. That would be my very general objective statement.
True. I think it brings in the concept of the maker and checker. So the maker cannot be the checker at the end of the day. So to answer you, Ian, of course, let everyone who concentrate on what they do best. And definitely the other factors you consider. But as you've gotten it, I think if you're having someone who's concentrating on antivirus solution or endpoint solution, I think that would be best placed to protect you rather than the person who has actually manufactured the device you're using. Okay, there is a question.
Juno, just to add on something else, I think also there are also other tools, the validation tools. So things like Gartner, for example, things like NSS Labs. So I think people can go and look at those things and see what are other customers saying about these technologies, who are the people test these technologies and actually can validate and say, I think, and you actually see all of them where they are placed in terms of protecting you. Then you can make an informed decision.
Okay. The next question is from Polycap. What's your take on VPN access for security purposes? Split tunneling or full tunneling? And I think Polycap is asking from the perspective of users accessing the corporate network. I think each of them has its own advantages and disadvantages. But if you want to control how much, then make sure that the controls which are within the office premises apply to the endpoint, then that definitely full tunneling would be better. However, split tunneling also comes with advantages. You won't have to receive all the traffic from the user. All the garbage, you won't receive it. You'll only receive what is required on your end. But full tunneling makes sure that everything that happens on the endpoint goes through the checks that happen in your office. So it is you have to strike a balance, but full tunneling might be able to help you much better than split tunneling would. But with remote working, what we've also seen is that when the person realizes the restrictions, they turn off the VPN. So whether you've done split tunneling or full tunneling, you've most probably not achieved what you want to achieve, because the person just turns off the VPN and decides to go without the VPN because they know there are restrictions. So I think from our end, if you can concentrate on the human point, like Christine has said, it's a culture issue, yeah? Then you will not have to worry about the technology. Concentrate on the human endpoint, do the awareness, make sure people are well informed so that they make the right choices, okay? There is another question. Why do many developers choose to use the Linux operating system as compared to Windows or IS to develop application and softwares? Can I hand over this to Evans? Maybe just to highlight on the advantages of Linux over Windows, or the myths that exist between Linux is not hackable, Windows is hackable. The question is, why choose Linux over Windows?
So the means of hacking is many ways. Okay, you can be socially engineered. Someone can send you a malware that you can download and it executes. So for the Linux-based operating system, they have a higher immunity because of how they handle executables. Okay, so in a Windows machine, you're able to configure a malware or a virus such that a user can click on it, then it downloads itself, okay, and immediately executes itself. However, since Linux, most of them are immune to this, then it's impossible or close to impossible for executables to initiate the activity. So that's the major reason, nothing else, because the user, the UX is relatively friendly for both, and also in terms of handling and how well you can maneuver within applications, and the UX when you install applications is still the same. So there is not much difference from the face value, but on the back end, executables are harder on the Linux environment than on Windows.
Okay, thank you very much, Evans. I have an interesting question from Gilbert, and I would like to have Christine address this. How do we mitigate the risk of data leakage where the gadgets are stolen over the basic password protection? So I'm using my gadget to access personal information as well as corporate information. So beyond the password, yeah, how else can we mitigate against the risk of data leakage when our devices get lost?
Actually, I had mentioned before, I will just keep it short. The adequate control is hard disk encryption. You can go ahead and look out for the different hard disk encryptions like PGP, like BitLocker, and then if your hard disk is encrypted, your data is safe. And some organizations have gone ahead to encrypt only what in Windows they call the C partition and not the other partitions. That means now the other partitions will be at risk. But if all partitions, especially at device, okay, maybe partitions are still this laptop, or when they still try to hack this, they can try to wipe away the data, but the hard disk will be corrupted. They can even not use it. Yeah. Okay. What I would suggest us to do, you go ahead and look out for the methods existing for data for hard disk encryption. They will.
Okay, so I think also if you look at mobile devices, you have some tools that can help wipe out a device remotely. And of course, on top of the encryption. So there are some softwares out there that can help with that. More keen to be keen on mobile devices, try as much as possible to use most of the security features. Right now, most of the mobile devices actually do allow for fingerprint verification, password, face recognition. If you can have those, you might be a bit better off than someone who just has a PIN. And of course, like she has said, for corporates, mobile device management solutions are very key. So that at least when someone reports, you can remotely wipe out the data and the encryption, as she has said. I'll go to the next question. How sure are you the virus packages are safe to download on my laptop? Oh, how can I be sure that the virus packages, the antivirus packages are safe to download on my laptop? This is coming from Christine. My comment on this is avoid free things when it comes to computing. Avoid free things, because more often than not, something that is for free, you are the product. If something is for free, you are the product, okay? You might not know it, but somehow you are the product. For example, social media platforms use our data to advertise, okay? Have you ever wondered why you're talking about shoes and the next hour you're getting an advert of someone who sells shoes within your area from Facebook? It's because they're listening in, or sometimes the messages you're typing, you give them no access to be able to have access to your messages and understand and make analytics out of your calls, your messages. So avoid free things. If you want an antivirus solution, go pay for it. Yeah, you will appreciate later. So free things, just like in real life, even when it comes to security, there is nothing for free. So avoid those free antiviruses, avoid free things, because at the end of the day, you end up paying heavily. I'll go to the next question. How can an average user tell when their endpoint has been hacked, and are there any other common telltale signs? Christine, I think this is your best place to answer. What are some of the telltale signs that an endpoint has been hacked?
Okay, I will need some support here.
Okay,
I'm usually on the other side, of being
hacking.
But
okay, when you're hacking, what do you
yeah.
Yes.
That's a big method. But usually when you're, especially mobile device, when it starts to slow down, there are two things involved. Either you already have malware there, somebody already hacked and put in a malware, whether you have background processes heavily running, and that shows that somebody may be in the background running those processes, or maybe it's your device. But in most cases, if it has been really working fine, you look at your capacity, it is still fine. You have a good RAM, and your apps are not running. Please, there are some background processes running. Somebody is heavily using, trying to play around with your device. And then the other bit, malware is heavily running on your device. Those, I just beg somebody to help me on the other ones.
Let me add on. I think the person who asked is called Marion. Marion, when there is a change in behavior, and unexpected change in behavior for your gadgets, that could be a telltale sign. And I'll be clear, it's a telltale sign. It might not necessarily mean you've been hacked, but it is something to look out for, okay? I mean, you find, I'll give you an example. If an email has been hacked, you find emails you did not send in the sent items. That is, if someone has not wiped them out. You find people telling you, I've received an email from you, but you didn't send it, okay? Those are the telltale signs. There has to be a change in behavior of your device, yeah? Before it was lasting maybe a full day when you're not using it, typically at work. Then all of a sudden the battery can barely go for half a day, and you've not been using it, and it's barely a year from the time you bought your device. So there are those behavior changes that you need to look out for. We might not give you specifics, but there are always those anomalies. And more often than not, you'll even notice them and complain, but this thing is not working as it used to work before. Okay, so I have another question from Polycarp.
Maybe, Jonah, to be
Yes,
more
Ivan.
specific, because most of our users are Windows users,
Yes.
how you can know these processes, you can ask, you can do it yourself practically. You can press Control, Alt, and Delete and go to the task manager. So on the task manager, it will list for you all the processes that are currently running. And anything that is malicious, you can deactivate. So that's a more specific way to allude to what Christine and Jonah are saying.
Yeah, thank you, Evans. I have another question from Polycarp. We get all sorts of apps from the legitimate online app stores like Play Store, App Store, and Windows apps. Are all apps in these stores vetted before being published? Should we trust all apps in these stores? Moses, could you assist us and handle this, especially that you have some solutions that you give to clients? How do then users handle apps from the different app stores? I'm seeing Play Store, App Store, and Windows apps, so that they do not end up having non-legitimate apps downloaded into their devices or their computers at that.
I think it's a very legit question. I think it just goes back to your own user, being user aware, and also knowing what exactly you're putting in your PC. And most importantly, do you also have what's protecting your phone or your computer? Do you have the standard? Because do you have your normal antivirus, the basic thing that needs to protect you? Because then I'd presume that those applications are vetted by the companies who develop them and the companies who are hosting them. But looking at you protecting your own interests. So that means, do you have an AV running on your PC just to make sure, in case you have an application that you download and it's, let's say, trying to call, let's say, call back home, like CNC, is your security software able to protect and block that from those CNC connections? So it just depends on what exactly you have running infrastructure or in your PC or phone to help you secure your device.
Thank you for that. Just as an addition, this question came in from Polycarp. We need to be very aware of what permissions we give to the applications that we download. Okay. An example: you've downloaded a fitness application. Why does it need an access to the microphone? Why does it need an access to the webcam? Okay. Why does it need access to your text messages? Okay. Why does it need access to your location? I mean, it's a fitness app. And then secondly, do not download what you do not need. Only download what you need. Okay. So if you do not need a fitness app, don't download it. Okay. That is the way you can sort of protect yourself, because on the other hand, also crooks have managed to bypass the loop, bypass the mechanisms that Google has put in place, and also Apple has put in place for applications to come to the App Store. So try to remain with only the applications that you need. And secondly, mind the permissions you give to these apps that you download. And should you reach an event, at least on my personal phone, my Android operating system gets to show me how long I've used an app, and then highlights you've taken maybe 2 months without using this app. That means you don't need it. So you can do away with it. You don't have to have your phone with all the apps that have existed in the world. Okay. And not just because an app is hyped doesn't mean it's good. That means it's even good for you. Okay. I have another question from Victor. Oh, okay. This is directly addressed to me. Juna, what is your take on open source / free software in the context of cybersecurity? I'm a big supporter and a user of open source technologies. I think open source technologies, of course, are good, but there is a catch to it. When it comes to what are you using it for? Let's begin from there, okay? I mean, I can imagine if a bank told you they're using open source software to protect your money, how comfortable would you be? Then also, when it comes to the other item would be, when it comes to support and security, who is owning it up? Okay, so has the person or the vendor of this open source solution prioritized security? Okay, because at the end of the day, we have to look at how do we secure. So two things: what are you using it for? Okay, you need to look at what risks is it bringing into your environment. Yeah? Can you actually absorb that risk? Yeah. If the answer is yes, why not? If the answer is no, then that means you need to look for solutions who are willing to take up that risk and actually mitigate against it. That would be my take when it comes to open source, and it's largely based on what you're using it for. I have another question from Peter. What is the best first line of defense when you notice hacking on your device, especially on mobile devices? I don't know if Evans, you have any tips for mobile device security and the first line of defense for, actually he says when he notices there's a hack on the device. What is the first line of defense?
Let me see what I can drink. I'm
Okay,
very...
there's some mic that's open.
It's okay,
Yeah.
I've muted the person.
Okay, so first of all, what was the indicator of hacking? Okay, that would be your concern. All right. So sometimes you need to, like what Juna was saying earlier, you need to keep an inventory of the applications that you're running. Okay. And because you can easily decide to shut down the device, but you see, you can't still work on it. So you need to look for a way of containing, okay? So you can shut down the connectivity from the internet, of course, like any PC. The first thing is unplug it from the internet before you shut it down. Then now you can do what you call a cleanup. If you have an antivirus installed, I didn't believe, and I still don't believe in the mobile antivirus. However, you can uninstall, you can run and install on the applications that you don't need. Or if you're using an Android, you can go to your Play Store and run updates. Okay, because if there is an existing patch, okay, mostly on any of the applications, then it means that that's the area of interception. So for me, the tip is disconnect from internet and install what you don't need, and what is remaining, run an update. That is a guaranteed way of sorting it out. Right, and for things like Chrome, if you are intercepted through Chrome, you can uninstall it and you can always reinstall it. So you need to play around with those positions.
Okay, I think one of the questions, I think a lot of questions are coming up on mobile devices. From Diana, she's saying, are we safe with biometrics so popular on our phones? Christine, are we safe with biometrics so popular on our phones? There's a bit of lot of concern on mobile devices. I think we might need to highlight a bit on
it. Yeah. I'll give my opinion. I have read many papers around it, and many people from different schools of thought have talked about, especially the biometric of a fingerprint and the face on our mobile devices, that they capture the partial. I haven't gone to explore how true this is, but there are different papers since 2015 there. People have started to talk about them. What I would advise is this: if what you are safeguarding on your phone through that biometric is really sensitive to you, let's go back to multi-factor authentication. If it is that mobile app to your bank account, please, let's go back to multi-factor authentication. You can still have your fingerprint, but an OTP that comes with your mobile number, which you registered with that bank or with that insurance company, let it come. That's what I would suggest, because currently I have not a manufacturer. I haven't manufactured any, and I haven't tasted, unless when somebody has tested, they can tell us. But when papers say something, there is some truth in the papers. So if it is not secure 100%, why not do it and also add another layer? Like passwords, we all know it's really good to have, but when you add another layer to it, that is better. It's the same thought with biometrics. Let's use our biometrics on our phones, but where we need that another layer, let's do multi-factor authentication.
Okay, I think Diana, you've had it. So multi-factor authentication means that you have another way to verify that the person who's accessing maybe that bank account is the right person. So you can ask your bank to actually sign you up so that before you can access the bank account on your device, they send a message to your phone. So I will have a few other questions that have been posted. One is from Lennox. On the issue of passwords, considering how many accounts we have online, changing passwords are becoming quite cumbersome. Is there a different way to ensure security of online accounts? I think Moses, from the vendor space, are there solutions to manage passwords so that I don't have to remember all my passwords and I keep them securely? Is there a solution that the vendors you have for us?
Okay, so I think probably I think Evans probably alluded a little bit on it. So identity access and management solutions. So these are solutions that will actually this is from an enterprise perspective. I'm not talking about a user perspective. It's from an enterprise perspective, whereby you probably only need one password, and the rest of the password are actually at the back end. So the way it works is, so you have a technology that sits in between you and your application. So you only need the password of that particular application, and this application speaking to the application has different passwords to the different resources you need to access. And these passwords are different, are unique, and they keep on changing to every single day. So all you need to maintain is the password towards the password management tool. I think for personal use, I think there's a password vaults that people can use. I'm not use them personally, but I know that they're there. But for enterprises, yes, and it's all about we call it identity access management technologies, which help customers to manage passwords and credentials for enterprise users.
Okay, I think that also answers the next question, which is also on passwords. I think what is coming out clear is that people have too many passwords and they're tired of remembering very many passwords for the different accounts, and chances are that they will use the same password for all the accounts. So if you know one account, that means you know all. A password manager on a personal level, a password manager will help a lot, especially now if you're logging into websites. Look out for Firefox Lockwise, if I'm not wrong. It automatically generates for you the password and also stores it for you, so you don't even have to remember it. Yeah, there are those password vaults that you can use on a personal basis that actually can help you, and you don't have to remember all the passwords that you have for your accounts. Okay. I think we'll go to the next question. Okay. I think there's a question from Joel. In case of patches, how can one know the update is genuine, since they usually come up as pop-ups? Take an example of Android, Windows, where they get notification of an update. Okay, so I think, Joel, when it comes to patching, the only way to know that it is genuine is if the pop-up has come from the manufacturer. In this case, if it's Windows, the pop-up has come from Windows itself, but not from an application. For example, imagine the pop-up for Windows is coming from Zoom, and Zoom is telling you, click to update Windows, not to update Zoom. Okay, so the pop-up has to come from the manufacturer themselves. That means if it's Windows itself that is telling you that. If it's Android itself, not Facebook telling you to update Android. Okay, or an application, a fitness application that you have telling you to update Android. That would be definitely suspicious. So you would want to avoid that. There's a question from Eric. Healthcare data is at big risk with hackers becoming more innovative and coming up with new techniques. What technologies would you advise to ensure data security in this area? of telemedicine and teleconsultants. And I think I will pose this to still the vendor space where Moses is. What are some of the solutions that have been tailored to the healthcare space that can guide Eric on what to do, especially now that we are having even healthcare workers working remotely?
Okay, I think looking at health, and especially like hospital setups, for example, we see a lot of IoT devices, things like OT devices, operation technology devices around hospitals. So the scanners, all those things, which per se whoever developed those did not come from a security background, and those things actually connected to the infrastructure, to the enterprise network. So we have different vendors doing different things. Fortinet does its own thing also around that particular space, but we have specific firewalls, specific policies or configurations that could work around protecting those specific devices, just to make sure that somebody does not access the radiation machine and play around with it when somebody's already on the table. Or we have now robotics in surgery. You don't want somebody hacking into a robot when it's in the middle of surgery. You don't know the consequences of. So we have technologies from firewalls and different technologies that can actually help you around the IoT space, which is it's quite big in terms of consumption of IoT devices. So yes, technologies are there, and different vendors do their own different thing.
Okay. So I think also, Eric, to add, when it comes to healthcare, you find that what we've seen more often than not, the healthcare providers concentrate a lot on the healthcare rather than the things that support the healthcare. In this case, we are looking at information technology. So the same emphasis you put on healthcare, making sure that when they're doing surgery, they do not leave a component within the person's body. That's the same emphasis you need to put on security. Okay. And you need to also have sessions with your security people, employ security people within your healthcare setup. Okay, so if you're doing telemedicine, have a security consultant you're working with or a technology consultant, because more often than not, you're good at healthcare. Then there are people who are good at security. So make sure that you have discussions with security people, because what we are realizing is that healthcare is now also adopting technology very much. And also the crooks are realizing that there is a lot of money there. I mean, let's put a scenario where someone has the health records of the president. I mean, they can make a living out of it, a killing out of it, especially that it can actually tarnish the image. I mean, we have seen such scenarios. So you need to also emphasize security to your people. Like Christian said, it's a culture. Yeah, so the technology itself might not help. So you might implement a technology and think you've sorted. No, it might not help. You need to have a culture shift where people are actually as intentional about security as they are about medicine. Okay, and I hope that answers your question, Eric. I see our time is fast spent, and I would like us to take the last question so that then we can give our parting shots. And then we have the closing remarks from Esther, and then we close this session. But it's been really quite engaging, and I see we've left with a lot of questions unanswered. So most probably we can have an arrangement where we see how do we address all these. Okay. The last question is from Emmanuel. I need to know what is the role of the cybercrime unit if all these hacking incidents are still occurring or reoccurring. Someone educate them, please. Okay, this sounds quite focused on governance and how we implement policing of cyber regulations. And even from your perspective, how has the cybercrime unit fared? Because clearly the person here is not happy with it. And then what advice would you give to people? Because I would like to believe that the cybercrime unit comes in as a reactive measure. What are
I didn't quite get the question.
The question is, I need to know what is the role of the cybercrime unit if all these hacking incidents are still occurring or reoccurring. Someone educate them, please. Okay, it's not even a question. It's I think more of a dissatisfaction than a question. Yeah, but you can highlight on it.
Yeah, I can't appraise it. I can't appraise government or performance, but we can surely appraise the effects of the presence or lack of presence. So, just be quick to say that cybersecurity and information security in this country is not is not a legislative issue. Okay, even before we go to the data protection bill, okay, companies and organizations were still concerned about it because it directly affects you. Okay, and that's where the drive and need to secure environments came from. However, in other developed countries, and we are headed there, it's a legislative issue. So there is a requirement, like CBK in our context gives directive to banks that they must do penetration tests maybe once or twice a year. Every mobile application must be vetted, done a test before launch, etc., etc. So that headache should come from a legislative perspective, and that means parliament. So it's not into law because one, I haven't come across someone who can really represent such a motion in terms of knowledge and understanding. Yeah. And also, when you look at maybe the KEPSA, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, it has an arm of technology, but the priority is not cybersecurity. Okay, so that's where we get shortchanged. So it would be a lot easier to manage cybersecurity if the government had a direct hand and not just a means of telling from a regulator. Okay, like IRA, insurance regulators have never, and I'm assuming most of the participants here from that part of the industry. Okay, when they go and take care of their data, what are you supposed to do? A regulator should have an arm within to give you a framework of operation, to give you a standard to work with. Okay, so most regulators, and not only IRA, even CMA, Capital Markets Authority, they just have very short clauses and tell their members to make sure that the customer data or their client data is protected. So that lack of guidance is what is hurting the industries, and we are unable to come up with standard operating procedure, which in turn we can improve on. So we haven't started yet. That's why there is a hospital that deals with security in their own way, and there is another one that doesn't give a damn about it really. So those things should be standardized. But from a government perspective, I think we have a long way to go still.
Okay, thank you very much, Evans. I think we have come to the part where the panelists give their parting shots. And as usual, in the usual fashion, we shall begin with the ladies, and then we go to Moses, and then Evans, then I'll give my parting shot. Then we can have a parting shot from Esther, our marketing director, as we close this, because our time is fast spent. So over to you, Christine, what would be your parting shot to the individuals who have attended?
First of all, thank you for taking this interest in managing remote cybersecurity risks. However, if we are to forget everything, I would request us to remember one thing, that just because in your organization or personally on your phone, you have not found a cyber breach or you haven't been hacked, it does not really mean it has not happened if you do not have the many controls or the many initiatives we have discussed here. What I request us to do is, especially if you're from the corporate society, is to come down and say, what can I monitor from my side? What control can I put in place? And that control, please go ahead and regularly monitor it and do some analysis on your own. That will help you a lot to understand the behavior of your staff, your own behavior in the cyberspace and how best we can improve it. Actually, these guys are not sleeping, and they are part of us to stay. And this remote working is not also going. Actually, most corporate companies are going to make a killing out of it. So it's our time to just brace ourselves into this space and action. Yeah, thank you for attending.
Thank you very much, Christine. Moses, what will be your parting shot?
So I think probably three things to mention. So I think as you're looking at remote working, I think let's look at the processes that need to be put in place to enable that remote working. Secondly, the technologies, let's vet the technology properly. They're out there that can actually support us. Lastly, it's people. Let's train our people to have that security culture. It's important to say, for me to say, June, if you allow me, Fortunate is giving free trainings for all people or global customers or anybody who is interested. And it's not a marketing tool, it's just that it's free. We're looking at addressing the cyber skill shortage we have. So we have free trainings that you can actually onboard so that somebody can know, how does a phishing email look like? How do I know that somebody speaking to me on phone is actually just doing a social engineering thing? So these are some of the things you can actually just get from those free trainings that we're offering. But yes, people, process, and technology.
Okay,
thank you for the opportunity.
Moses. Okay. Thank you. Evans, over to you for your parting shot.
Thanks, Juna and the team for your time. It was a good brainstorm. My parting shot would be that cyber security or information security is a journey. It takes planning. It takes a lot of hands-on tech. You need to involve the board, you need to involve senior management, you need to involve the normal users and the technical team. And you come up with a framework of operation. This can be guided using the ISO 27001 standard. And the starting point is doing an assessment, just doing a gap analysis, understanding where you are, and benchmarking that against a desired state. Then the gap in there is what you plan and put a strategy on how to close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our panelists. And for my parting shot, I want to thank Evans, Moses, and Christine for accepting to be our panelists. And thank you for the wealth of information. And I'm hoping that we will have more of these sessions, because clearly we've even left a lot of questions unanswered. But I'm very sure Esther will call us back some other time, so that then we can answer most of these questions, and then see how then we make sure that people are living in safer spaces. To emphasize, I'm more passionate about security when it comes to an individual level. Companies have insured themselves. They have found ways to make sure they can protect themselves. But we as individuals need to be very, very careful. My advice is, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true, okay? If someone is telling you they have a shipment for you via DHL, please don't believe it if you didn't expect it, okay? Most of the crooks rely on human emotion, and that's what they use to make sure that they catch their culprits. The other thing is avoid free things. More often than not, because we rely on free things, at the end of the day, we end up getting caught, and that's why you have this becoming successful. The other thing is educate yourself as much as you can when it comes to security. For the parents who are here, please watch out for what your children are consuming. These days, predators do not need to be in your house. Predators do not need to be in your neighborhood. To paint a picture, you'll find a very funny-looking Chinese man in boxers in his bedroom, preying on your child who's at home. So how do you regulate that? Governments cannot even regulate that. In fact, let us not rely so much on regulation, because that is reactive. We need to take a proactive approach. Educate yourself, educate your children, educate the people around you. It is going to help us a lot. And the other thing, we have to change the culture. Christine mentioned it. It's a culture shift, okay? The same way you do not leave the key to your door at your doorstep, transfer that same sort of, I would call it being sensitive to security to your cyberspace, okay? Don't leave your phone without a password, yeah? The same way you do not just walk into the bank and anyone can withdraw from your account, yeah? Put the same controls when you're banking remotely, okay? Be mindful of the data that you have on your phone, yeah, on your computer, yeah? Treat it like your life depends on it, because it actually does, yeah? Our jobs right now might hang in balance if it happens that you're the cause of the hack that happened within your organization. So let's take it seriously. On a personal level, we also need to take it seriously, because we are having cases of actually children being cyberbullied, which affects them as they grow up. So educate yourself, avoid free things, and the cyberspace does not differ a lot from our real lives. If someone can pickpocket you in real life, they can also pickpocket you on the cyberspace by just mere sending you an email and take away the money that you have, okay? So let us be as cautious as we are in the cyberspace in our real lives. Thank you very much. There is a question on the recording. I think Esther will answer that, on whether the recording will be shared. And then the question from Mary, where can we have the presentation for the stakeholders? Yes, definitely. We shall do that. Thank you very much. Over to you, Esther.
Thank you so much, Juna, and our panelists this afternoon. It has been a wonderful and very thought-provoking session. Allow me to say that, yes, we will share the video after this meeting. I can see requests coming in for us to have another session. So yes, we'll ensure we take you up on that. Within the next coming months, we'll also carry out a similar session on cybersecurity. So we thank you for your time. I can see we have 4 minutes to our end time of 4 p.m. I just want to leave with a quote, a very famous quote that I know we've all probably gone through, which says that security starts with awareness, and awareness starts with you. So let us all take care of our various gadgets, passwords that we have, and how we can access and how we access information across the different devices. So thank you to Juna, Evans, Christine, Moses, and Daisy for this very wonderful webinar. And we hope to see you again in the next 1 week. I must say that today we had over 160 participants in this webinar, a very high reach in terms of the people who are able to register and be available for this session. So thank you so much. We'll now allow to leave at our own pleasure. Thank you for your time. We close.
Thank you, Esther.
The session.
Goodbye, everyone, and stay safe.
Bye. You can have the panelists.
Andres, well done. Andres, can you hear me? He can't hear me. The intro and outro is awesome. No, but the panelists are still on. I can see them.
But they have shut down the platform.
They can. They can actually hear you too. Esther Kiringa,
Yes, Mary.
well done. The intro and outro is fabulous.
I'm just telling, and I can see your participant. I'm just telling Andreas, I want to come there and hug him.
Why?
It's because the way I'm loving the graphics.
Oh, why would you want to hang him then?
Hug,
We should be.
not hug, hug.
I thought you wanted to hang him. So I'm like, you should
No,
be sending
to
him to Hawaii for a vacation.
I should.
Yeah. It's very good. He's done a very good job, the intro. I wish there was a bit of music, background music.
We'll take you up on that.
Yeah,
we thrive on feedback.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah.
I love it. We should do now a webinar for the children, for our children on cyberspace, and we invite all our stakeholders, children.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, so because you see, they could also be a risk to us through their own gadgets.
Yes, can the host remove the attendees as we talk?
Oh.
Who is the host? Can the host remove the attendees?
It's not you, you're not the host.
No, it's Eunice.
Eunice
and Andres.
Eunice, everybody should be gone by now.
By now? So we can have our internal.
Yeah, we're removing them just now.